Hi, and welcome to our Unit 1 flipped class dealing with the Neolithic Revolution and early River Valley civilizations. So to begin, we're going to need to define what the Neolithic Revolution is. Of course, Neolithic is Greek, meaning new lithic, and that would be obvious because neo means new and lithic means lithic. No, but in all reality, Neolithic is a Greek word, and what it refers to is the New Stone Age. And so this would have been the first part of the Stone Age, the last part of the Stone Age, and it would have been when most historians consider there was a dramatic shift from human beings hunting and gathering for food and settling down and gathering their food by domesticating plants and by domesticating animals. This was not a quick transition. This was a slow transition. It took place across the globe in many different locations over a long period of time. And that's what we're going to take a look at is like what are the different locations that this took place in and where are the commonalities and what does that teach us about what civilization is. And one other thing that we want to note about the Neolithic Revolution is that oftentimes, because it is associated with that gradual change from hunting and gathering to using domesticated plants and domesticated animals, it can often be called, or the time period can be called, the agricultural revolution, because it talks an awful lot about the human population farming as opposed to that hunting and gathering. The agricultural revolution is going to be marked by a couple of different techniques that are going to help us produce a lot more food. And one of those techniques is going to be these former hunter and gatherers. What they're going to start doing is they're going to start scattering seeds, and they're going to be scattering seeds, of course, of food that they like and plant varieties that they like. And they're going to realize that these are going to start to grow more regularly. Some other techniques that these early farmers are going to use are going to be the use of fire, where they're going to burn the fields and they're going to burn the shrubs. And what that's going to allow for is that's going to allow for the ash to be used as a fertilizer so that these plants can grow more richly and not be in competition with the shrubs or the weeds that would be present there. And then lastly, what's going to happen is these farmers are going to realize that they can shift the plants that they're using. And so one year they'll grow, say, wheat, and then next year they'll grow possibly like a barley or a bean or something like that. And that'll keep the soil rich because they're going to rotate the crops that they're growing in those areas. And over the course of time, by choosing varieties of food, wild strains of food that these people liked, they gradually will domesticate these plants because these plants will be permanently selected by people to be eaten and to be grown, and all the other varieties will be just naturally become extinct because they're no longer being eaten and they're no longer being produced. Originally, the domestication of animals is going to go hand in hand with the domestication of plants, but the sole purpose at first of the animal domestication was for meat. But over time, people are going to realize that there's a lot more value to the domestication of animals, such as getting milk. If you go back to the beginning of the video, you'll see another Egyptian piece of artwork similar to the one that you're looking at right now, but you'll see that they're milking cows so that they can have milk. We're also going to get clothing from the animals that we're domesticating, either through wool when we shear sheep or alpacas, or we're going to get clothing because when we slaughter these animals, we can make animal hide clothing out of them. And then the last bit that we're going to get from animals in the agricultural revolution is going to be help with farming itself. And you can see that in this painting, in this Egyptian painting, where we're actually going to use the animal's energy to help us with the cultivation and the gathering of the crops that we're growing, either through plowing the fields or through hauling our harvest once we've cut it. So as we advance agriculturally, we become what we define as being more civilized, and we create civilization because now we can live in a settled area for a longer period of time. And with this more reliable food supply from year to year, our populations are able to grow. And not only are our populations able to grow, but when there is a downturn in agricultural production due to a drought or a flood or some other calamity, we've actually got food stored from previous years, and therefore we're able to survive some of these calamities, and our civilizations are able to thrive through those bad times. And this continues to lead into society making more firm roots in these settled areas. And as we make more firm roots in these areas, we start to establish traditions and characteristics that will then be used by historians to define what civilization is. And there are 5 major characteristics that we use to define what civilization is. So of the 5, the first one that we have is record keeping. And so this record keeping would be for businesses, so that we know how much we need to be charging for goods, or how much we need to be saving so that we can make profits and such. Or it could be for historical purposes, so that we can pass our histories on to future members of our own civilization. The second characteristic would be advanced technology. And this would be maybe developing the wheel, or a boat, or a plow. Anything that's going to make your civilization advance. Anything that's going to make your life easier. And you're able to have this advanced technology because you're settled. Because now you've got time to devote to improving life. The third major thing that you're going to do is you're going to have advanced cities. And these are cities that might be as small as 10,000 people or as large as 50,000 people, which would be a dramatic change from the hunter-gatherer society, where you're moving around in family bands that are between 15 and 50 people at a max. And so this is going to be a much smaller group during the hunter-gatherer days. And then once we have the settled civilization, we can advance up to having 10,000, 50,000 people living in any given city. The fourth thing that we're going to have are complex institutions. So like a complex institution would be having an organized religion. And then it could be a polytheistic religion early on, or it may turn into a monotheistic religion as we advance through time. Another example of a complex institution would be having a governmental system. And these would all be shifts from previous institutions because they would be defined by having laws, by having organized structures to them. And then the fifth characteristics of civilization is going to be having specialized workers. Workers who are not farming, workers who are not dedicated to producing food for society, but doing some sort of other activity for society. And so this would be having soldiers, this would be having priests, this would be having teachers, and creating jobs such as that for society. And if you look on the map, you'll see that there are 4 major civilizations that we will discuss briefly here in this video. The first one being probably the one that you're most familiar with, which is over in this area where the mouse is currently circling, and that would be Egypt, ancient Egypt. And this is what you've probably studied in previous years in your history classes, and that's where the artwork would have come from that we were previously looking at in this video. And the second area that we would look at would be in this area here where the mouse is now circling. And that would be in the Middle East. This would be around modern-day Iraq. But in the ancient time period, this area was called Mesopotamia, and is one of the best examples of an early civilization. Another region that we would want to have our focus would be in this area here. And this would be in modern-day India, or around modern-day India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh. And this area would be called the Harappan civilization. And then the last area that we want to take a look at would be over here where the mouse is circling, and this would be in this yellow area, the only yellow area that we're going to focus on. And this area is in modern day China, and this would be Shang, China. So we'll first take a look at ancient Egypt, and we'll just run through the five characteristics of what made ancient Egypt a civilization. And the first one would be record keeping. And this would be the hieroglyphics that you're probably used to seeing or have seen in the past. The second would be advanced technology. One of the big ways of Egypt having advanced technology was through the creation of papyrus, which was the first form of paper created in civilization. The advanced cities, probably the most famous city that you're aware of would be Cairo, and that would be right on the Nile River. And the the fourth characteristic would be complex institutions, and that would be the creation of the job of the pharaoh, or the pyramids that you can see here in this image, where pharaohs were buried for religious purposes. And then the last characteristic would be specialized workers, and priests would be an example of the specialized workers in ancient Egypt. Moving on to Mesopotamia and going through those characteristics very quickly, you would have record keeping, again using their own version of writing. You can see it here on this slide called cuneiform. The advanced technology would be ziggurats, very similar to the pyramids used by the ancient Egyptians. The Mesopotamians had ziggurats that looked like step-like pyramids. The advanced cities that you may have heard of would have been Babylon. The complex institutions would have included Hammurabi's law code, which is what you're looking at right now. This pillar has the law code of Mesopotamia written out on it. So there are written down laws that must be followed. And the specialized workers would have been potters or other craftsmen, similar to what you're seeing here. This would have taken some great skill to create. The last civilization that I'm going to discuss, I'm going to skip over India and the Harappan civilization because there's not as much that we know about that civilization. I'm going to move on to Shang China. And for record keeping, the Shang Chinese used pictographs, and you can see some of the pictographs on the artifact on the screen right now. Very similar to the modern day pictographs that are used in China. Their advanced technology would be bronze metalwork, making vessels out of bronze, or the production of silk. Their complex institutions would have included divination, which you would have seen through the use of oracle bones. And again, the image that you're looking at right now would be an example of a tortoise shell that was used to help with divination. Advanced cities would have been a city by the name of Anyang, and specialized workers would have been professional soldiers. The Shang Chinese had the first paid professional soldiers who their only job was to be a soldier. And that will end our first lesson.